Elves are mischievous supernatural creatures, part of Germanic mythology for centuries. Over the years, their form changed in many ways, ranging from feyfolk to dwarves. Don't tell them, but dwarves were elves too originally. But 100 years ago, elves got a little image change. And nowadays, when people talk about elves, they talk about the elves that were inspired by none other than the elves created by J.R.R. Tolkien. And it's not like you can blame anyone to think like that. Elves, dwarves, orcs and goblins became a trope on their own and are a staple in many fantasy media, including in fantasy TTRPGs like D&D or Pathfinder. Hey, I'm the Worldbuilding Sage, and in this video I'll show you how to take the common idea of elves in fantasy and give them a twist befitting your world. But first, we have to establish what an elf is, or at least how I see elves, since there are certain themes attached to them that go beyond smugness and long pointy ears. No matter the many variations of themselves Elvenkind has seen over the years, they share a bunch of similarities in their themes, which are the following. A glorious past followed by stark decline, longevity or immortality, the oldest possibly still remembering said glorious past, warlike behavior, no matter if for the purposes of defense or offense, and lastly, magic, or at least some form of supernaturality beyond their immortality or increased lifespan. Beginning with Tolkien's elves, to the elves of Warhammer and D&D, to Elder Scrolls and Warcraft, all well-known elves share these traits as a theme in some way. And let's pick two examples. The High Elves or Eladrin from Faerun and the Nightborn or Shaldorai from Warcraft. Both have a glorious past. The Eladrin ruled over all of Toril until a series of civil wars and the First Sundering split them apart. They can get up to 750 years old. Their proficiency in the arts of war is unparalleled and basically every member of the society gets weapon training. As a people, they are inherently connected to the Feywild, making them into powerful wizards. While the Shaldorai were part of the Highborn Empire, the citizens of Suramar that were able to shield themselves off during the Great Sundering of the world, caused by their queen's lust for magic and power. Being a playable race in the Warcraft setting, they joined a war between the Horde and Alliance even after they got freed from their enslavement by the Legion. They drew in their immortality and their magic powers by the Nightwell, which is a replacement of the previous Well of Eternity. Most of their storyline in-game is actually about finding a way to rid them of their addiction to magic of their flawed will. You can find these tropes in all of the elves, even dark elves or wood elves and sea elves or whatever elves there are. Especially drow and dark elves are just evil and edgy versions of high elves anyway. It's key to utilize those themes and twist them to fit your own world and setting. So think about the way your elves fit into your world. It's totally fair if you come to the conclusion that they wouldn't fit at all for various reasons. The elves in my setting are more mythological and less Tolkien-esque too. I think the first theme for the elves, the ancient glory and the downward spiral and decline, is the most intricate and most interesting theme of them all. Explain how the elves affected your world's history and in which way their decline came to be. In many ways, the decline is tied to cataclysmic events or age-old wars, but it doesn't need to be that way. It can be apocalyptical only for their own civilization, where the rest of the world isn't really that affected. Constant wars and a certain indifference towards progress tend to partially be causes of the decline of big empires and civilizations. Tie their immortality and their worldly perception and worldview into it. An elf who might have been alive during the height of their empire is like a Roman who would be alive today. Their longevity or immortality should give them an entirely different look on worldly matters. They aren't smug or uncaring, it's just a certain sense of conservatism, and not necessarily because of the age, but it's just the ideas that were seen as progressive 500 years ago when they were still young. But their apparent wisdom should still give them a sense of paternity over the younger race. Well, that or a sense of superiority, depending on the relationship between those races. I think immortality deserves its own video, and I'll definitely make one day. So like and subscribe to keep yourself updated. Anyway, while their warlike behavior has been a way to expand or defend their empire of the past, today they are fighting for their people's survival. They have to keep up the military and warlike behavior, or a bunch of orcs, demons or other come around and fell them. Or maybe it's a way of pride, just their way of tradition. They've been mighty and an empire in the past, so keep up some form of military drill is the last bit of former glory they can maintain. Magic. Well, this is probably the most esoteric part. Just give them magic in a way. Make them good spellcasters because of their longevity or because of their affinity to magic. Or think of other reasons befitting your magic system. Integrate magic as best as you can into their society and or their lifestyle. So let's create some elves together. Those elves won't be part of the world we are creating together in my other videos. They'll be part of a new world I use whenever I make a video of something that doesn't fit into my main world. And like Tolkien-esque elves. Our elves will have a mixture of two different aesthetics. We are pulling from the high elf aesthetic, but we are giving them a different skin color, closer to a darker blue or purple. The society is a magocracy that resembles the Roman Republic in many ways. The patricians being replaced by powerful magi families, though the prole replacement will still be able to cast magic, just not as powerful. In the past, our elves had a vast empire consisting of most of the continent, ruling over different peoples including human tribes, orcs, goblins and other fantasy races with their own different cultures and ways to live. They relied on their underlings a lot. Despite their longevity, there weren't nearly enough elves to rule the continent on their own, and over the years they delegated more and more powers away. This worked out for the most part, but after a series of wars, partially against some fantastical evil, but also against the mundane, the system broke. More and more people tried to get into the Empire's lands, stretching its governing capacities to its limits. Raiders attacked its shores and borders. More and more issues arose. The elves saw themselves obligated to grant their subjects more and more ruling powers to do the ruling for them, while the elves secluded themselves into their own cities. Today, their empire exists only on paper. The continent is divided by different kingdoms. The elves are technically still their overlords, but only on paper. It's a sign of prestige and legitimacy to go to the capital to be crowned king over certain lands by the Elven Senate. It's most comparable to the papacy crowning the kings and emperors of Europe in the medieval age, plus some other nominal things. At the very least, they can keep a certain amount of soft power over the different realms. Many of the ruling Elven families marry into royal and noble houses of the different realms as a way to keep influence. Even after the death of their spouses, the widows and widowers retain a certain influence as advisors to the families, while elven features are commonplace in noble lineages. Despite their military prowess being a shadow of their former self, even today all able-bodied elven citizens are required to be trained at arms, a training they have to repeat every 20 years or so. While in the past this was required to keep up their power, today it's mostly prestige and glory of the past that keep the citizen militias of old up. Different elven mercenary companies participate in the wars of the realms. They belong to the most well-trained and disciplined, assurers of victory in many cases, but they are the most expensive of them all. Their magical academies are where the nobles of the realm send their children to learn, which in turn is another center of soft power the elves can influence the continent's politics with. In the past, they taught the other races high magic in the first place, so they could do the job as needed. Despite all of that, it's only a matter of time until someone breaks the system of nominal overlordship the elves have over the other races. That's it for today's video, world builders. I hope you liked it. I'd really appreciate if you liked and subscribed, so you're being kept up to date with more world building videos. And I'd really appreciate comments about the elves in your world. See ya!